Brute force, masters of war, a powerful combination of strength and skill. Titans are the most heavily armoured and most direct of the three classes. They assault fortified enemy positions head on, utilising their mastery of the light to shield and protect themselves and their allies, or to destroy their adversaries. Titans begin with the Striker subclass, unlocking the Defender subclass at level 15 and the Sunbreaker subclass at level 25. What's on YouTube, it's Pete TT coming at you with another Destiny video. And guys, I'm sure you can probably work out what today's video is about. Today we start covering the subclasses for each three characters. Obviously the Titan is my personal main character, so that is what we are going to start off with. As you heard in the beginning then, in this video we will be covering the Striker subclass, the Defender subclass, and the newly included Sunbreaker subclass. I personally feel that the Titan definitely has the best subclasses out of all three characters. You know, you're not limited by anything. I think it's kind of just a personal thing, guys, you know. I personally have played a Titan from day one and I absolutely love them. But enough waffling, let's jump into this guide. We're going to start off with the Striker subclass, as this is what you have available to you in the very beginning of Destiny. So the Striker subclass, guys, has 3 grenades available to it. Up first we have the Flashbang grenade, an explosive grenade that disorientates the enemies it damages. Very, very good for crowd control, especially if you're going up against things like the Hive. Very, very useful in certain situations. Next we have the Pulse grenade, a grenade that periodically damages enemies inside its explosion radius. Now personally I very rarely use the Pulse grenade. However, the third grenade, the Lightning grenade, a grenade that sticks to any surface, periodically emitting bolts of lightning, I use all the time. Like, this is the only grenade I run, okay? I use the Flashbang in the start of Destiny, as you guys will, but when you get that Lightning grenade unlocked, trust me guys, that is what you're going to want to run on your Titan. After your grenade kind of skill tree, then you have a jump skill tree. Now this is the same on every character. You start off with your normal jump where you press A. Again, you press A in the air and it activates the lift, taking you higher. After that, you have the increased height perk. Okay, so this basically lets you jump greater heights. Third down on the list, you have increased control. Upgrades lift for better directional control while in the air. And finally, you have catapult. Upgrades lift to provide a strong initial burst of momentum. Now, personally guys, I always leave the increased height on. I love how high the Titan can jump with this on. Moving on then to the Striker subclass super, the Fist of Havoc, right? Smash the ground and dissolve nearby enemies in a maelstrom of arc light. Trust me guys, Fist of Havoc, absolutely amazing. I love the thing. It doesn't matter whether you've got 1 enemy around you or 100 enemies around you, it completely destroys everything, right? Press both buttons, bang, everything is gone. After that, you have kind of the perks that you can change your Fist of Havocs. So first of all, we have Aftermath. Fist of Havoc leaves a damage dealing field in its wake. Now this is very good in the Crucible, things like Control where you have to cap a flag. If you actually use your Fist of Havocs, kill everything on the flag but you die, the enemy can't actually get on the flag for a good few seconds afterwards because you've left that damage dealing field, giving your teammates or yourself chance to get back to that flag and stop them capping it. Not the most useful in PvE, but it is still good nonetheless, guys. Moving on then, we have Death from Above. After jumping, Fist of Havoc can be aimed at enemies below. Personally, this is something I've never ever got the hang of. I've played Titan from day one. I can never get the hang of aiming my Fist of Havocs, guys. It works very well. I see a lot of people using it, especially in the Crucible. If you can master this, it is very, very good because you can jump up from one side of the map and you can Fist of Havoc all the way to the other side of the map. You'll get a lot of people referring to this as Supermaning because your Titan does look like Superman as he flies through the air. And finally, on the Fist of Havoc kind of tweaks, you have Shockwave. This is something I run quite often in PvE. Fist of Havoc unleashes a wave of devastating energy which travels along the ground. Basically, guys, it sends a shockwave forward, so any enemies that are kind of a little bit too far away that would normally be outside of your radius, Shockwave will hit them. Moving on to the Striker subclass melee then, we have Storm Fists, a punishing melee attack that deals bonus damage. Storm Fists are very, very good. The only issue with the Striker melee, guys, is that it is very, very short ranged, okay? In fact, it is the shortest ranged of all melees in the game. I do wish it was a little bit further, but, you know, it is what it is. It's very powerful nonetheless. The first perk you have then is Overload. Reduced Storm Fist cooldown. Hits with Storm Fist have a chance to immediately reset its cooldown. Fairly useful in the Crucible, okay? I don't really use it in PvE, but like I said, Crucible, it can indeed be very useful. Next down we have Discharge. Hits with Storm Fist deal area of effect damage around the target. Now this is something I use in PvE and PvP because if you've got multiple enemies around you, it can actually deal damage to more than just the one you initially hit. And finally we have Amplify. Kills with Storm Fist significantly reduce the cooldown of Fist of Havoc. Again, quite good, especially if you spec into a strength build, but we will go into that kind of thing in another video, guys. I'm not going to confuse you too much in this one. Moving on from there, then you have 3 Titan Codex drop down. Basically, these are used to change the Titan's armor, recovery, and agility. So, personally, like I said at the beginning, Titans are very strong characters. They're very pushy. I opt for maximum armor, maximum recovery, and very low agility. Yes, it means my Titan's a bit slower, but it means I can take a lot more damage. My shields regenerate very, very quickly, and I can keep on going. After your first drop down then of Titan Codexes, you have a couple of other perks: Headstrong, Aftershock, and Transfusion. Now guys, these all do different things, very similar to the final drop down menu with Unstoppable, Shoulder Charge, and Juggernaut. You guys can kind of have a look through them because if I go into every single perk in detail, this video is going to get very, very long. In between those two final ones though, there is a second row of Titan Codexes where again you can adjust your armor, your recovery, and your agility. Basically guys, like I said, in my opinion, the Striker is by far one of the best subclasses. It's something you get from the beginning. It's something you can use for a very long time. It decimates things in PvP and PvE. Let's move on then to the Defender subclass. So the Defender subclass also has 3 grenades. Okay, this is the Void class. The first grenade you will get is the Magnetic Grenade. A grenade that attaches to enemies and explodes twice. Very useful. It is the one I personally choose to run if I'm running a Defender subclass. Second, you have the Spike Grenade. A grenade that attaches to any surface and emits a torrent of damaging void light. Personally, I don't like this one too much. I find it very ineffective. And thirdly, you have the Suppressor Grenade, an explosive grenade that prevents enemies from using abilities for a short time. This can be very useful in both the Crucible and PvE. Again, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do though, guys. Next up then you have the Jumps. These are the same as the Striker class, so I'm not going to cover them. Then we have the Defender Super. This is called Ward of Dawn. Shape Void Light into an indestructible shield to protect you and your allies. Replenishes grenade and melee energy on activation. Now, Ward of Dawn is very useful, guys. It can be used in the Crucible, but I don't see it too often. But when you come to PvE content, having a Defender Titan on the team is very, very useful, especially when we talk about the drop down bars where you can change the perks. So up first on changing the Ward of Dawn, you have Armor of Light. While inside Ward of Dawn, you and your allies gain significant damage resistance. I personally don't use this, but I have seen it used to great effect. But this is where it gets really, really interesting, right? The next one you have is Blessing of Light. Passing through Ward of Dawn grants you and your allies a temporary shield. Now this is really, really cool because it basically gives you your health bar again full with armor. So you can kind of take double damage before you die, and you only have to dip in and out of the bubble to refresh it. The one after that then is called Weapons of Light. Passing through Ward of Dawn grants you and your allies a temporary increase to weapon damage. Now this is so powerful, guys, that in the Crucible you can take a sniper that would normally take a 2-shot body shot to kill someone into a 1-shot body shot to kill someone. When you're going up against PvE bosses, again this can be very useful. You can turn a 2 or 3 minute encounter into, you know, a 60-second encounter with a geared up team. Moving on then to the Defender Titan's melee, Disintegrate. Killing an enemy with this powerful melee creates a force barrier around you which absorbs incoming damage. Now again, I don't really use the Defender subclass very much unless I'm doing PvE, and even then I only tend to use it in raid situations. So I don't really use the Disintegrate, right? Yes, I've obviously used it, it's usable, you do notice it, but I wouldn't worry about it too much, guys. The first perk where you can change it then is called War Machine. While Force Barrier is active, all your weapons reload and ready blindingly fast. Now this can be used very good in the Crucible, okay? Giving yourself an increased reload time is very handy, especially with things like shotguns, LMGs and snipers. Moving down to Gift of the Light. While Force Barrier is active, all your melee kills create Orbs of Light. Now, teamed up with, say, the Armor of Light, this could be very useful. In PvE, when you start talking about modifiers and things, then you start kind of tweaking your subclass depending on what you're doing. But again, we will cover that in another video, guys. Finally then, on the melee side of it, you have Unbreakable. Force Barrier continuously recharges. Now this is kind of the one I tend to have selected all the time. Like I say, I don't really run the Defender Titan that often, so the melee doesn't really worry me too much. Similar to the Striker subclass then, after that you have 3 Titan Codexes adjusting your armor, recovery and agility. You then have Bastion, which increases the duration of Ward of Dawn. Relentless increases the strength and duration of Force Barrier, and Gift of the Void. As Ward of Dawn takes damage from enemy fire, it creates additional Orbs of Light. Now you might be asking what Orbs of Light are, guys. We again will cover that in another video. After that, you have another 3 drop down of Titan Codexes for your armor, recovery and agility. And finally, you have Untouchable, reduces the cooldown time of Ward of Dawn. You have Iron Harvest, heavy weapon kills have a chance to create Orbs of Light for your allies. And finally, you have Illuminated, increases the benefits granted by Blessings of Light and Weapons of Light. Like I say, guys, I've said it enough. I don't really run Defender. It is usable if you're in a team in certain PvE situations, but personally, I run the Striker or the Sunbreaker. Talking of the Sunbreaker then, let's have a look at that before we wrap this video up. So again, the Sunbreaker has 3 grenades. The first one is Fusion Grenade, an explosive grenade that causes bonus damage when attached to its targets. Very, very good. It tends to be the one I run more often than not. You have the Thermite Grenade, a grenade that sends forward a burning line of fire. This can be very useful and it works in a similar way to the Striker's Shockwave on Fist of Havoc. And finally you have Incendiary Grenade, a grenade whose explosion catches enemies on fire, causing additional damage over time. Now DOT is a very good thing in the Crucible, but again guys, that is something we will cover in a later video. Then next you have your jumps. They are the same as the previous 2 subclasses, so we won't cover them. The super for the Titan Sunbreaker class is Hammer of Soul. Summon a flaming hammer and wreak destruction down upon your enemies. Hammer of Soul is very, very powerful, guys, okay? And it can be modified in several different ways. The first one is Forge Master. Throw more hammers, and hammers cause bigger explosions. The second one is Sun Charge. Press right back, or R2 if you're on PlayStation, during Hammer of Soul to hurl yourself forward. Enemies in your path explode. chaining fiery damage to other enemies. Again, this can be very useful in certain PvE situations. And finally, you have Scorched Earth. Ignite the ward, creating sunspots everywhere your Hammer of Soul impacts. This can be very useful in the Crucible, guys, especially if you're playing something like Control. You can fire it onto capture points so the enemy can't get on it without dying. The melee then for the Sunbreaker subclass is Sunstrike. Burn your enemies with a heavy solar melee strike. And again, this can be modified in several different ways. So you first have Melting Point. Now this is the one I choose to run all the time. Burn away your target's defenses. While burning, targets are weakened to both you and your allies. The reason I use this all the time is, like it says, targets are weakened to you and your allies. It is very good for you, but it is also a very supportive role, so that if you die, your allies can kind of finish off PvE or PvP targets because they take more damage. Moving on then to Thermal Vent. Sunstrike releases a solar explosion on hit. Kills create a sunspot that damages enemies inside. Now I don't really play with this one too much, guys, but again it's very situational. It can be good for you, it can not. Moving on to the final melee modifier then, Stroke the Forge. Reduces Sunstrike cooldown, getting a killing blow with Sunstrike instantly recharges it. Now again, this can be very good because you can kind of be shooting things, then melee and have it back straight away. A couple of shots in something else, melee, you know, and you've got it back straight away. So it can, if used right, it is very useful, guys. After that then, again, we have the 3 Titan Codexes for armor, recovery and agility. We then have Flameseeker. Your Hammer of Soul will alter its flight path to seek out your enemies. We have Explosive Pyre. Enemies felled by your hammer explode, chaining fiery solar damage to others. Then we have Fleet Fire. Enemies felled by your fire grant you bonus agility and reload speed. Stacks up to 3 times. This can be very useful in the Crucible. I don't really use it that much in PvE. I tend to stick with Flameseeker. Then you have another 3 Titan Codex drop downs for armor, recovery and agility. And finally, you have Simmering Flames. Cauterize. Enemies brought down by your fire regenerate your health. And Firekeeper. While standing in a sunspot, you gain an overshield, and Hammer of Soul lasts longer. And there you have it, guys. That is a, I would say, a brief look at the 3 Titan subclasses. You can go into the way you modify subclasses for different things, PvE, PvP, and then when you look at the actual environment, PvE, you have strikes and raids and missions. You know, you play with subclasses all the time. I can't remember the last time I left the subclass the way it was for more than a couple of hours. You know, as I change activities, I tweak around the subclass to go with it. And that is something you will have to learn to do as you play through Destiny, because one setup that may be good for one activity, 9 times out of 10 isn't very useful in another activity, say PvE and PvP. Guys, I hope this video helped you. If it did, make sure to smash that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe, because there are plenty more Destiny guides coming your way. Guardians, the next video will probably be looking at the Hunter subclasses, so make sure to come and check that out. And as always, Guardians, thank you very much for watching. Until the next video, I'll catch you all soon.